Om Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagatcha Akanda Rupa Stiti Reva Moksho Brahmadvitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It is the final conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings in the world. Living in constant recognition of this fact is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect, and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the sure and certain proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Indram Mitram Varunamagni Matarato Divyaha Sasuparno Garutman Ekam Sat Vipra Vahuda Vedantim Agnir Yaman Matarishvanamahu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. To that one supreme transcendental being, the saints and seers apply many a title, such as the ever-pure waters of existence, the all-pervasive ether, the fire of yoga, the eternal companion, the winged carrier of consciousness, the devourer of death, and the one who shines forth the light. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So welcome everyone to SRV Association's Hawaii chapter. It's our local ashram that you're meeting at here on the Big Island. We have a few guests from the mainland who have joined us today, and we're very grateful to see them. We have another chapter ashram in Portland, Oregon, and some of my students are probably watching. Salutations for being present here on this live streaming event, which we do every Sunday, mostly. Sometimes, like recently when some of us went to India a few weeks ago on a pilgrimage, we were offline for several Sundays. And when I go to the mainland to those ashrams, I also give live streaming classes on Saturday and Sunday both. So we try and keep this up. It's propagating the Dharma, the eternal Dharma. It's called Sanatana Dharma of the ancient Indians, or Vedacists, even Tantricists and yogis, as we know that Vedanta nowadays is rather an umbrella term that contains underneath it and within it all these other darshanas of India. Yoga, Samkhya, Vedanta, and I would say Tantra and Buddhism and Jainism, whether they're orthodox systems or non-orthodox systems called Astika or Nastika in India, they are putting forth teachings common to all the darshanas. The word darshana means a clear way to see. Darshi means a seer. or to see. And so, of course, in the Dharma you see out of this third eye, which Krishna and Christ and Buddha all talk about three great beings or luminaries that are our eternal companions. Those three definitely fit the bill and hit the mark. And they all mentioned that, seeing through this third eye. Thine eye be single. Krishna called it Jnana Chakshu in the Gita, and Buddha called it the Dharma eye. I have the Dharma eye within me. So those beings, as we related last week, are examples of our eternal companion. And that's the name of this class series. We're in the second of 3 classes called The Eternal Companion. I've also brought out the fact that when we started last week, it was Swami Brahmananda's birthday, so there was a book written about him called The Eternal Companion, in which a lot of questions were asked at the end, and a lot of devotees and even some very observant onlookers were seeing how Swami Brahmananda, known as Rakal in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, conducted his life, and how he lived a spiritual life, and how revered he was. He would definitely also be a prime candidate for one of our eternal companions. So this second class, you know how I set it up last week. If some of you weren't present or want to be reminded, I was thinking of 4 things that could fit into that title as subtitles. The Eternal Companion, luminaries, religion, Atman, Brahman. That would be 4 examples of our eternal companion. Sorry, today we have what's called volcanic off-gassing on the Big Island, which is fog. And it's different than fog, and it's different than air pollution. Sometimes it can get to our throats, so I hope I can speak 3 hours. And Madame Pele, who's the goddess Shakti of this island, will allow it sit in my throat and not only speak out of it, but clear the results of fog away. So, as I was saying, those 4 candidates are subtitles for this overall topic. And the way I set it up last time was, I thought maybe Brahman would be good to introduce as our eternal companion, but no. Brahman is a far cry for most of us. To know Brahman is to love formlessness, is to be so tired of your life of suffering or your life of pleasure that you want nothing but God. And really we only saw 1 or 2 souls in the last few hundred years here on earth that could fit that mark. Total renunciates and so forth. So Brahman would be a good background ideal. As if you're an Advaitist, which means to those watching a non-dualist, if you hold that best and religion isn't particularly inviting to you or is not doing its duty for you, then you usually default to this more transcendental idea of Brahman. But Brahman is very difficult to realize. Krishna says that in the Gita. Those who want to follow ideals, it's best to follow the ideal of Ishvara, God with form. But very difficult to attain is the formless reality. He's not saying that that means you should give up that, but I think it's more of a matter of integration, that Brahman falls to the back when the world comes forward. And the world is termed Maya in our tradition. Name, form, time, space, and living beings. Or name and form, time, space, and living beings and their karma. Those are the 5 things that Maya is made out of. But then I just chanted from Shankara, Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Resha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha. Brahmaiva Jivaham, living beings. Sakala, time, Jagad, world, Cha, and Brahman. All of these are Brahman. To the Advaitist, that would be the mark to hit. That would be the highest position to attain. Very difficult then for people who are working in the world, who have children, who hold jobs, who aren't able to meditate 5-6 hours a day, who have a difficult time even finding time to clear the karmas from their mind. because karma starts in the mind and then works its way out to the physical and then reacts back in the mind. It's this vicious cycle we're talking about. So we need to become karma yogis and karma yoginis. I was meant to mention last week was Swami Brahmananda's birthday, but this year is Sister Nivedita's sequicentennial. It's 150 years since she was on the planet. We might call her Swami Vivekananda's prime student from the West, who went to India and gave her whole life to India. Started a school for girls and was there having a very difficult time, but very gracefully transcending all the problems of race and culture and doing her duty as a karma yogini. So this is what I mean, you'd have to be able to do some very effective karma yoga on yourself in order to clear away some of these impositions that the mind carries. Impositions that maybe you're not even aware of, and some of them you don't think that they're actually poisonous, but you carry them around anyway. Like maybe you go to a foreign country or something, you say, I'm an American. Well, that's a poison that you're carrying. Or you say, well, that's a Christian, I'm a Hindu. Well, that's a poison. These are barriers between people, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, and they have to be struck away. Before we started this class, we were speaking, before the live streaming audience joined us, about good separations to hold, and then these separations that you want to get rid of. Separations you want to get rid of would be these hypocrisies and I am different from God instead of I and my Father are one. These false superpositions that the mind holds just naturally as if they were the right way to think. But as you enter into spiritual life, you feel like these are barriers and I want to penetrate through them. So there's some separations that are more healthy I should adopt, like discrimination between the real and the unreal. You're going to have to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's a healthy spiritual separation. Or I am not nature. I am not the body. These are examples of separations you want to introduce into the mind so it will think about it. So you can eventually, think about it, attain a unified mind. And maybe even be a candidate for a universal mind like Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So definitely Sister Nivedita and this is being her 150th anniversary celebration, was an exemplar really of how to be a karma yogini, and also how to hold these ideals of Brahman and Ishvara. She had a guru in Swami Vivekananda who she was completely dedicated to her whole life. And then she had this teaching that he was giving about the non-dual Brahman. So without getting into it too far, and I have a chart that will illustrate it a little better, Brahman is a far cry for us to attain in name and form. In fact, really can't be attained in name and form, because it's beyond name and form. You're going to have to take yourself up and out of name and form. So what are some things you're going to have? Fearlessness, for instance. If you fear the formless condition, you can't be a non-dualist. People are walking around calling themselves Advaitists and non-dualists, but they fear death. But to a non-dualist, death doesn't exist because they're fearless and they'll laugh at death. They'll welcome death. Sometimes I've told you that Dalai Lama told me in person once, we Tibetans look forward to the time of our death. In fact, I was reading Sister Nivedita just the other night in her complete works. Swami Vivekananda, her guru, has his complete works. She also has complete works that you can look up online. And she was saying right in there in one of her poems about how the devotees of Mother Kali love death. I think maybe it's kind of a odd or strange statement to make, but look at your own Jesus in Christianity when he said, those who love their life shall lose it. Those who hate their lives will get it again in eternity. I could probably massage that a little bit and say those who love their life will get it again in relativity. Again and again. That's called being reborn too many times. And those who hate their life will transcend relative life, conventional life, life of suffering, life of pleasure, life of the Bhogamarga, as my teacher used to say. life of pleasure. They'll get beyond it. It won't be satisfying to them. And then they'll start to step up to qualified non-dualism. I got a letter from one of my relatives last night about putting in some, quoting some facts from India, from some conservative pundits about Advaita, Shankara, Vishishta Advaita, Ramanuja, and Dvaita, Madhva. These three great philosophers of India who champion these three steps. Vivekananda called these three steps. Interesting to note that both Madhva and Ramanuja were Vaishnavas, so they had a very strong penchant to love Ishvara. That is, God with form to them was ultimate. It wasn't that they didn't talk about Brahman, but Madhva said the two shall never meet. Brahman and human beings are two separate realities. And to which the Advaita would say, there can't be two separate realities. That's not a healthy separation. Let's remove that line of demarcation. So different ways of thinking. Ramanuja too, a Vaishnava, but he acknowledged Brahman, but also acknowledged Ishvara. And his ideal was to be more attuned to God with form. Whereas Shankara was a Shaivite. So he was very much attracted to the non-dual philosophy. I and my Father are one, and so forth, be thee perfect as thy Father in heaven. This ideal of the oneness of all existence and the oneness of God with the so-called individualized soul. The way we deal with that as Advaitas, because Holy Mother said, since Sri Ramakrishna was an Advaita, all his followers also fall under the umbrella of Advaita, non-dualists. You're all non-dualists. You just happen to be non-dualists that also love God with form. Because Sri Ramakrishna came in form, and so did Vivekananda, and so did Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi. So the way that the Advaitas would deal with that would be by holding more than one ideal. They know that the world is Brahman. And they've only come to know that by knowing that the world as a separate world from Brahman is Maya. But the world as one with Brahman is Brahman. So it's a mental step to take. And that step is very difficult to take unless you can move from duality to qualified non-dualism to Advaita. We have really no problem against Madhva and Ramanuja, mainly because the only thing we would say was that if you haven't had a taste of non-duality yet, then the picture is not complete. You can't keep us down to worshipping the feet of Ishvara, because Ishvara itself, whenever it's made the appearance, has told us that to be thee perfect and so forth, that your Buddha nature is one with Buddha. I mean, whenever you see beings who champion a non-dual position, they have that one objection, not against Ishvara, but against the religions that formed around Ishvara. Swami Vivekananda used to say that, I love Christ, but I don't really like Christianity that much. And I love Buddha, but I don't really like what happened to Buddhism that much. So there's no problem with these great beings. They're luminaries, and we talked about that last week. So back to my fourfold plan here from last week that I'm trying to reiterate. Brahman was difficult to reach. Okay, there's the statement on it. Next was Ishvara. Ishvara isn't known to be around very long, and then when she goes, doesn't come again for a long time. And I explained that last year. If you're in the religion of Christendom, then you haven't seen Ishvara for 2,000 years yet, you see, and you're still waiting. So that's a problem, you see. What are you supposed to do in the meantime? Just be a good boy and a good girl would help, you see, moral and ethics and all that. But 2,000 lifetimes to the Vedantas, 2,000 years to the Vedantas is a lot of lifetimes to live if you keep coming back with karma. And karma will bring you back to work itself out. It's a brick around your neck or on your tail. that pulls you out of your heavenly existence into earth without you even being aware of it. I mean, if the left behind theory of the Christians has any validity, that you're pulled up out of earth all of a sudden to heaven because you believe in Jesus, then the opposite should also be true. There's always an opposite in this universe. You should be pulled down out of heaven and into the physical body again, saying your favorite mantra, wah, wah, wah. You see, W-A instead of O-M. You see. So that's one of the problems with Ishvara. Where is he? Where is she? And Ishvari, how often do they make an appearance? And if you go more historically and you become more accepting of other religions, and you start to think, well, maybe from Buddha to Christ there was 550 years between them, and maybe from Christ to Shankara Gaudapada there was 500 and 600 years, and maybe from them to Chaitanya there was another 600 years, and maybe from Chaitanya to Ramakrishna, who's seen as the avatar of Kali in this day and age, there was another 500 or 600 years. So then let's be a little bit generous and say the avatar maybe comes once every 500 or 600 years. The Ishvara form, right? Krishna and Ram, even back before Buddha, thousands of years old, you see. Their teachings are still clear thanks to Indian Dharma maintaining itself. And souls coming back like that. So my point here, to summarize that second pillar of eternal companion. First was Brahman, second is Ishvara. Brahman is without form, Ishvara is with form. Now, there is a form of Ishvara that's also formless. We call it formless form. And there are people who, not ready to graduate to Brahman, not ready to melt their hailstone in the ocean yet, as Shankara would say, and are tired of religion and duality, are caught somewhere in the middle of that. And so they're holding an ideal of formless form. I've seen it, I have one myself. It's like if you take Vishnu and you take Shiva and you take Kali, and you think of them as anthropomorphic beings with many arms and so forth, then you've got a heaven realm. So you've got an Ishvara or an Ishvari that resides over heavenly realms where people go. Lokas, they're called. Akashas, inside. This is why Brahman is also space, right? I've chanted it in both opening chants just now. Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakala Jagad Cha, its time and space is also Brahman. If we looked at just the physical universe, we wouldn't think so. But there are other kinds of space inside that begin to look more and more like Brahman to us, more and more like heaven and higher heaven. So that's important to account for. So if we take that more open stance around Ishvara, and say it comes historically every 500, 600 years, that's still a lot of lifetimes to move through, wandering your way in the dark towards some light that has been spoken 100, 200, 500 years ago, you see. And will you remember it? Look at religion today. See how many beings have forgotten the higher reaches of religion. And they're just following conventional or mundane religion, or they've given up religion altogether. And who's to blame them? Because of its present state. And all religions fall into that problem. If one religion gets more accent on terrorism, another religion gets more accent on salvation, another religion gets more accent on the ancestors, worshiping the ancestors, and then they all begin to fall away from their higher ideals. So people will abandon those ships like rats, leaving a sinking ship. So the problems with Ishvara, I'm saying. Now, this is devil's advocate kind of stuff, because basically Vedantas and Buddhism are both positive. They're not life demeaning. They're life or life effacing. They're divine life supporting. They're like like Jesus, if you love your life, you'll lose it. So that life, they're not interested in an ego life. It goes on and on too much, and there's reincarnation and karma involved. But this eternal life, they are supporting that. This is what they're speaking of when they give teachings of discrimination, detachment, so-called negativity. These are positive negatives, just like those separations you have to make. So there are upsides to both Brahman and Ishvara. We'll get to those. But last week we took up, of the four, that is the remaining two that I'm saying are good fits for our eternal companion, is our own Atman and religion. And luminary, let's just throw that in together. Luminaries and religion, kind of put them together. So with that, then we run into the problem of religion, which actually I've just sort of already spoken to that. It lets us down, becomes fundamentalist. It is not worthy to follow. It leads us only to heaven and not to a transcendental position. There's all sorts of problems that you can cite there. So you're going to want to turn that small r religion into a capital R religion, is how Vivekananda put that, and how to do that. In fact, how to do that without him coming back to tell you how to do it. So here you have again the problem of Ishvara or Avatar not coming and staying long enough. I mean, lots of these beings, Ramakrishna, 50 years old when he passed, Christ, also young, passing away young when he's crucified, Shankara, 32 years old when he passed, and Swami Vivekananda, 39. So if you take some of these great Ishvara-type souls, these undeniably great souls, they don't stay around long even once they're here. So then the religion that they leave behind, and quite often then runs also the risk of the long efflux of time. Who am I quoting there? Sri Krishna out of the Gita. Religion declines, Arjuna, over a long efflux of time. And so that's why every 500 years or every age, a great soul will come back to try and resurrect that Dharma. Yuge, yuge cha dharmasya is the quote in the Gita about that. Now in modern times it's gotten an upgrade, and Vivekananda says, Sarva Dharma Swarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. So there's new Sanskrit phrases about new beings coming, like Sri Ramakrishna, who epitomize Sarva Dharma, the Dharma of all religions, in one being. It's time for Mother Kali to come, manifest herself in a great soul, and show that all these religions belong to her. They always have and always will. She's the Mahashakti. Nobody's looked at it that way, not as a collective whole for a long time. There have been individuals who have seen that, have worshipped Mother, and seen her as the force behind everything, not as a collective whole. In any religion or any nation, no, not happening. Can't remember it in history. So now we have this beautiful vision upon us. It's called the New Dispensation, if you want words for it in English. The New Dispensation is this dispensation of the eternal Dharma under the auspice of the Divine Mother of the Universe through the Kali Avatar Sri Ramakrishna and his messenger Swami Vivekananda. That's how we put it in our tradition. That's how serious we are about it. And we don't accept any criticism around it because 6 million people have gotten salvation and freedom through it. And a lot of people have actually gotten moksha following him. So why do we have to listen to a few naysayers? It's obvious in front of your noses that this is the new manifestation, the new dispensation. How else can you tell? By the appearance of an abundance of ancient scriptures making their way to you through the Ramakrishna order in different languages of a revealed nature. So you can now follow this new path. Anyone can follow this new path. In fact, Holy Mother said that when she was living. Sri Ramakrishna's divine consort and wife. She said, Sri Ramakrishna has now made it possible for all to realize God. In the past, only certain people could realize it. Now everyone in this day and age can realize God. And we're beginning to see that. Again, 6 million people. If Sri Ramakrishna is Atlas, and he was able to pick up the curtain of Maya for a while and put it on his shoulders so people could get under for the last 200 years. And now it's beginning to drop again because no one can hold Maya that long. So those 6 million, and who knows how many more will happen in the next few hundred years. And then after that, Swami Vivekananda's vision of the non-dual reality on the increase for 800, 900 years, he said, this is perfect proof, if you would need any, that these great souls come to earth and a new one has come. Should I sing it? Ishite nutannamanas dek bijodi aichale tarviveka vairagya juli. A new man has come. Do you want to see him? Come along with me, I'll show you. He's available to everyone. When you see him though, don't be shocked. He doesn't have anything but a shoulder bag. That's all he owns. And if you ask him what's in it, he'll open it and show you Viveka Vairagya. There's nothing in the bag. And you'll say, I don't see anything. Oh, that's Viveka Vairagya in there. That's my spiritual life. That's my message to you. Discriminate between the real and the unreal, between God and mammon, if you want to go back 200 years, and detach from the unreal. It's the wheat and the chaff all over again. Only you have to eat the chaff to get nurtured. I'm sorry. You have to eat the wheat to get nurtured. The chaff must be discriminated away. So this is all about Ishvara and religion. So religion can let us down. Now the two left really are and we'll take up religion next, are Atman, and or the one left might say is your own self. That was actually my first pick, if I thought of these four. Eternal companion, Babaji, you're going to have to talk 3 classes on that. Divided into 2, now 3, oh maybe 4. I see, and of those 4, what can you tell them is your best friend today? All of you, live streaming, anyone who will watch this in the future. Now we're getting, 1,000, 2,000 people who watch these classes over time. In the last few years we've been putting them out. Starting to grow and people are hearing about it, you see. So who's your best friend? It's like that. Who's your daddy? Or who's your companion? You see. Who's your mommy in this case? What if we posed that as being the Atman as your best friend? Well now, ask yourself, how many people have realized the Atman? How many people have heard about the Atman? How many of you have realized it? It reminds me of a Sanskrit a Sanskrit sloka, which is if you have heard of milk, others have never heard of it, still others have tasted it. A few on a dairy, this kind of thing. See, so there are very few that actually have even heard of Atman. And then of those who've heard of it, they hear of it once and then go away. They don't try and realize it. You say, oh, that's an interesting thought. My soul is perfect. Or maybe they champion that, but they don't work towards realizing it. Right? That's what Viveka Prana and Sister Vedanta and these women I've been reading lately, because this is the 150th year centenary, sequicentennial they call it, and our Nectar journal's focusing upon that, and I'm working on that right now for all of you. So you can read those beautiful articles by these Western women and see about their lives. So these women are mentioning that fact, that what they see, whether they're monks or lay people, Mr. Nivedita, being a lay person for quite a long time, finally taking some sannyas, I think, and then our recent Pravrajika that is on the scene now, who sent in an article to us. When I read what they're speaking in this 150-year spread, I'm reading people are having suffering, they're having karma, and they're not doing anything about it. That's the message I'm getting overall. They're not doing anything to get out of it. So they're aware of it, but they don't take the steps to free themselves. So like Sri Ramakrishna's story of the 4 kinds of fish that get caught in a net. So one of them dives deep into the mud and thinks it's safe, but it's actually got the net in its teeth. So it's completely deluded, that kind of soul. They think they're free here, now. Is it the case? Another kind of fish swims around crazy, no plan, restless, bumping up against the net, frantically trying to release itself with no plan. Another kind of fish swims toward the top. That's totally against the grain for a fish, right? Especially in danger. If you're in danger, would you think about God? Which is kind of what we're saying. So if you're a fish caught in a net, are you going to swim to the surface? Or are you going to be like that fish who wants to sink its head into the mud and pretend like it's safe? So this one fish has some real veracity and some real velocity, and it moves to the top to try and get over the net. It has some sort of instinct inside of it that if I go up there where death is, the fisherman, that I can actually have a chance at freeing myself. So this is what I'm saying in terms of people hearing about karma but not doing anything about it. So you're going to want to be one of those who takes to religion in order to realize your Atman. Now, Atman, of course, then being this final candidate. So my question, or the downside of Atman being your eternal companion, is, have you seen it lately? Have you realized it? Do you know how to attain it? Does it show itself to you, waking, in dream, in deep sleep? Do you instinctively feel it inside of you? And if you do you try and seek it? For instance, third eye openings, or hearing the sound of Om. There are seekers who are still at a very superficial level. They're not very deep seekers, but they're still having these kinds of experiences come to them. They'll have little colors. The Upanishad even mentions some, right? Oh, like fireflies, like sparks, like blue pearls. You'll see these little things start to form in your, if you're looking up the third eye, which, by the way, is probably not a good meditation to begin with. You want to start in the heart. But in the heart is, heart connection to the throat is where Om is heard most distinctly. So if you're a person who hears the profound humming of these 1,000 divine bumblebees, probably the very same ones that are flying in and out of Mother Kali's hair, this sound of Om, and you don't pursue it, then you've just had a little experience and you walk away. See? Oh, I heard Om once. See? And maybe you'll tell your grandchildren, I think there's something like that. See? So how far are you pursuing those experiences once they happen to you? Or when they do happen to you, are you going to be prepared to pursue them? Have you got a guru? Have you got a mantra? Have you read the scriptures? Are you practicing the 4 yogas? Do you have a sadhana that's ongoing day to day? Are you meditating every morning? These are the questions a superior teacher would ask you. An inferior teacher will go, it's okay, it'll be okay, it's all right. Go on, just do what you're doing. Just like superior doctors, mediocre doctors, inferior doctors, a story about Sri Ramakrishna, that Sri Ramakrishna told, see, about the 3 levels of teacher. So all of that around this idea of Atman, where is it? Have you seen it? Can I find it? Have I glimpsed it? Am I working to realize it? So I don't think it's a very good candidate for your eternal companion right now. It's again, like Brahman, an ideal to hold. You certainly don't want to forget it. So what I'm limiting it down here to is you've got these great luminaries, these eternal companions. They are your best friends. That's my pick of those 4. And next, unfortunately, is religion. As in poor a state as it's in, you've got religion that you have to turn to. And the good part of that is that you've made it fall. So it's time for you to resurrect it. It wasn't Ishvar that made it fall. It wasn't Brahman that made it fall. It wasn't Maya that made it fall, because Maya is insentient. So who is it that's made religion fall into such a deplorable state? And also you have to say that there are people following religion today who are doing admirable job of making spiritual progress. I mean, they went to Swami Brahmananda, for instance, because people would complain about worship. See? One Swami went to young brahmacharya, young Swami went to Rakal and said, "You're making me do the worship in the temple? I'm not suited to do that." And Swami Brahmananda said, "But worship is important. I think you should be doing this." He said, "Well, but I don't like worship." It wasn't his ideal. So, let's see if I can just read it to you instead of trying to explain it. Should we perform our daily duties? Do your duties conscientiously and without attachment. Always remember that you are the instrument in the hands of God. Maharaj, the question came, what is the significance of all these gods and goddesses and this worship we do? Do they really exist? And what is the meaning and purpose of ritualistic worship? Rakal said, Swami Brahmananda, the many gods and goddesses represent but so many different aspects of one Godhead. Men differ in their temperaments and so are inclined to different ways of worship. To meet the needs of all, the scriptures prescribe 4 distinct methods of worship. One method is ritualistic worship of God embodied in an image or symbol. Higher than this is the worship of God with prayer and japa. By this means the aspirant prays and chants and meditates on the shining form of his chosen ideal within his own heart. Higher still is meditation. When a man practices this form of worship, he keeps up a constant flow of thought toward God and becomes absorbed in the living presence of that chosen ideal in his heart. He goes beyond prayer and japa, but the sense of duality still remains. The highest method of worship is to meditate on the unity of yourself and Brahman. This leads directly and immediately to God. The aspirant experiences Brahman. He knows that God is. It is an actual realization of the omnipresent reality. So, back to my story, when Swami Brahmananda, who was president of the Ramakrishna order at that time, told this Swami to do the worship, he said, I'm not geared for this. And Swami Brahmananda a third time said, well, I'm asking you to do it. Will you do it? So he couldn't refuse. He said within two or 3 days he saw the importance and efficacy of worship at Swami. Within 2 or 3 days of doing that worship, he saw the importance of it. And he was a monk. I mean, if you had have told that to a householder or a Brahmin priest, young Brahmin priest, go do worship, that would have been something. But to tell that to a monk who has renounced the world, that he has to go back and worship in any one or all of these 4 ways, you wouldn't think that that would be the result. But he's like stepping backwards. He thinks he's going towards Brahman and transcending the world. All of a sudden he's going back and using elements of the world to deify the world. And that's what my Guru Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj used to say. He said, worship and freedom, is renunciation that goes with it. It is not condemnation, it's deification. So you have to take all of this and see it as Brahman, right? Vedanta, Siddhanta, Nirukti, Resha, Brahmaiva, Jivaham, Sakalam, Jagat-cha, all of this is Brahman. So whatever position you're coming from or whatever position you're at, that's what you're going to do. Some excerpts out of the Eternal Companion, since it's what we're talking about. So there's my opening to this class. There's a reminder and also further explanation of these 4 ideals. Now, here's 7 great universal ideals we might want to look at to warm us up to this subject. I mean, I've only proposed 4 to you, but here's a way of warming us up to the topic by seeing what India has in store for us. Now there you see at the top this quote. And it also continues at the bottom. So it's by Swami Vivekananda. He says, the world has not come to that state yet when the ideal can be realized in society. That's very profound right away. You have a great luminary like Swami Vivekananda, who Sri Ramakrishna called an eternally perfect soul. Nitya Siddha. Naren is an eternally perfect soul. He told that to the devotees when Naren was in his teens. This was long before he was the famous Swami Vivekananda. Naren is an eternally perfect soul. So a perfect soul is telling you the world has not come to a state yet where the ideal, Brahman, can be realized in society. Not hard to understand if you look at society right now. How about American society and its politics right now and so forth, closing its borders to people and all of that kind of ilk. So it shouldn't be hard for you to understand, or anyone. Going on, he says, the progress of the world through all its evils is making it fit for the ideal slowly but surely. So now he's saying all these problems you're going through, if you take them in the right way, they'll be good for you. You're being challenged, you're being tested. He once said, the world is a gymnasium for souls. You have to flex your muscles and get out. Continuing on at the bottom, the majority will have to go on with the slow growth. So here's another practical thing he says, that he's noted about us. Remember, we're talking about a grand high luminary coming to earth in this day and age and looking at both Indian and American, Western, European society and giving his conclusions on the matter. So we have to listen, I think, and take it on face value if nothing else, not look deeper into it. So now he's saying most beings are going to go by the slow growth method. He concludes by saying the exceptional ones will have to get out to realize the ideal in its present state of things. So now he's saying if you want to realize your Atman, as I just said, or Brahman, you're going to have to get out of the world. The present state of things is not going to allow you to get out of the world. Your job, your family, your karma, your penchant for a life of insouciance, your ancestors. I mean, you can just start counting on your two hands and probably run out, unless you were the 10-armed Durga. You start to run out of fingers, see, of how many things are holding you down from realizing the ideal. So, this is why the subject eternal companion is important. These beings, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Jesus, Buddha, beings of other religions too, who are very high and attained, are your best resort. So this is why luminaries and religion have to go together, and this is what Vivekananda wanted, is to put a new R in front of religion, an uppercase R. It has to fall to us, because that's the only way we're going to go beyond a sort of failed morality to Dharma. And you know what SRV feels about Dharma. It's the solution for everything. That's one very important point that Lex Hickson, our founder, SRV, and I agreed upon completely when we talked about starting any kind of organization like SRV, when we were talking about it. Well, one thing is most evident is that the Dharma is the best solution for everything here. We need the teachings. And the best part of India and Tibet that has come to us since the 60s, those teachers who are authentic and who made the most important impression on us and gave the best influence were teaching the Dharma. The others were teaching fame and name and occult powers. They were not good for us. They were holding us down. Might as well add them to the ancestors. But those beings who were teaching the Dharma, they were the ones that wise people listened to and went to. Whether it was Buddha Dharma, Hindu Dharma, Vedanta, Yoga. I'm not talking about Hatha either, because that was a downside. Use it a little bit and go beyond it, he said. You see, don't get stuck in it. Learn how to sit like this, Shankara says, that's your asana. How many asanas do you need to know? One, it's called ekasana, this. I'm using it right now to transmit the Dharma as best as I can to all who will listen. And the founder, Lex Hixon, used to sit like this all the time. We used to try and out-meditate each other. Finally, in my 20s, I'd finally have to stretch my legs. And then an hour later, he'd release us from meditation, you see, because he was my elder. So we'd get up and go outside the room, shrine room, and I'd say, how long? I said, you meditate so long, I can't keep it up that long. He said, oh, I could have gone a lot longer. So in my late 20s, I was getting this example of how you can transcend body, knees, back, whatever's bothering you, if you have one asana. And not just pain we're talking about here. It's the mind's desire to get into asanas. You have to be very careful of that. Because Brahman is ultimately still, Atman is motionless. So if you want Brahman and Atman, you have to be still and motionless for a long time. How long did Buddha sit to get nirvana under the bo tree? I mean, this kind of thinking has to occupy your thoughts now. And you're going to have to expand yourself, increase your capacities, and grow these abilities, these spiritual character and qualities, so that you can last. Let's see. Not just in heat and cold, or pleasure and pain, but when spiritual heights, when you encounter spiritual heights inside, like third eye opening or the sound of Om, you're going to have to be able to last in that experience. I can tell you myself that when I've had several of these experiences that were very profound in the sixth chakra, and I usually don't share them, but I can tell you this, is that sometimes they frightened me. And other times I was ready to leave the body when I saw them. I thought about that. I said, am I not steady? Because steadiness is what a yogi should attain. Steadiness of mind is everything. Not only inside, but in outlook outside. Steadiness, evenness. Samadarshitvam, Vivekananda called it. But then I began to realize that I was having those experiences when my mind was in different gunas. When my mind was in a cycle of tamasa rajas, then I would tend to have fear when these things came to me. When my mind was in a sattvic state, or a peaceful state, I would be ready to leave the body. So that also says something about tamas and rajas. Because didn't Jesus have the dark night of the soul, and Buddha was challenged by Mara under the bo tree? I mean, so these great souls also have this very difficult times. Of course, in their cases, they're taking on collective humanity's karma, not just their own. They're already free. We don't realize that about them. But as a teaching on the luminaries, like Shankar and others, they're already free when they're born. That's why at 10 years of age, they're already recalling everything from the scriptures that they knew in past lifetimes. And by 8 or 10 years of old, he had it all memorized. He knew all the scriptures. And we'd say, oh, that must be a genius or a prodigy, but those words do not measure up to what he was. You don't have English words that measure up, like prodigy or genius, to what's called a jivan mukta, a living liberated soul or a nityasiddha who's eternally perfect. There's no words. You have to go to Sanskrit and be able to understand the Sanskrit, contemplate the Sanskrit, and then create a new nadi inside of your head. A nadi means a channel that confirms that these things exist. And then once you confirm them, there's a smriti, a memory in you that it will connect to. Now you're on the right track. These nadis have been blocked, see, like rivers dammed up, see, with too many logs, log jam, right? You have to go out there and start separating these logs, and so the water can begin flowing again. This is what happens when you don't know anything about your own Atman. Then someone tells you about it. Then you start clearing the log jam, and now you remember it. See? Like this Swami I just said, puja, he didn't want to do it, right? Didn't want to do worship. 3 days later, he saw how important it was for him. That's clearing a log jam in your head. You're holding some sort of unnecessary blockage that you yourself are holding and that you yourself can remove. It's not just positive thinking we're talking about in order to get money or a better job and stuff. We're talking about realizing our true nature and never having to worry about jobs and money again. See? You'll have the riches of realization inside of you. I got off on a long explanation, but that's what from Vivekananda is just one or two sentences. This is what happens to my mind when I read him, you see, or any of these great souls. So let's look at some of these ideals. Brahman, it's easy because all you have to do is listen to these quotes by these great luminaries that I was talking about last week. This is how the luminaries and their ideals and religion, true religion, connect together. How about Gaudapada? He was Shankara's teacher's teacher and a great Advaitist. He's known east and west for his Karka, his famous commentary on non-dual reality. So he says, Brahman is unborn, free of sleep, devoid of dreams, beyond names and forms, flashing up all at once. I've never read a better description of Brahman than this, by the way. It is omniscient, like intense concentration without end, but transcendent of conceptualization. You see how he marks it? He'll give you the highest, but he'll make sure that any lower thing doesn't creep into it. See, no compromise is allowed, because when you say something like, it is omniscient, like intense concentration without end, all of a sudden you start thinking about it. That's a concept. All of a sudden you're imposing a concept on this beautiful truth that he just stated. So he said, oh no, it's not like that. It's the way Krishnamurti used to teach, maddeningly so. See, is that you would say something and he'd interrupt you before you even got half the sentence out of your mouth and say, oh no sir, it's not like that. He was already breaking down any concepts you might want to put over these precious few words that in their own way were effective in doing away with false thinking or half-truths in you, in your mind. It is silent with no words, completely calm, illumined once for all, unmoving and free from fear. Some things to say about Brahman. The ideal, one of these 7 ideals here, Sapta Maya Alaya Vijnana, the beautiful Sanskrit train of words put together there. It's really one word. If to understand it, you break it up with several dashes. Sapta Maya Maha Alaya Vijnana. These 7 great ideals, as if they were to wipe everything else away from your mind except these. And they're the highest wisdom, Vijnana. 7 of them, Sapta. So next time you think about Brahman, think, it's like intense concentration without thought. I mean, it's a very beautiful teaching of the Dharma. I mean, the Dharma has thought, but the Dharma will drive you towards not thinking. That's called inspiration. If you think about the Dharmic teachings and you're prone to them, then they will inspire you, and you could just see Sri Ramakrishna going into samadhi when anyone told him a precious teaching about God. You could just see his eyes go like this, and his consciousness disappear from the senses. So not in waking, not in dreams, right? Brahman's not there. He's not going into other states to find Brahman. He's going transcendent to where Brahman is. So that's why I can't quit talking about sentences like this. I'll never get anywhere in this class, you see, or in any class, because I want to stop and explain these things. They're so beautiful. Intense concentration without conceptualization. That says it, you see. And thought will come and ruin it. My mind soared high in the sky of non-dual awareness when all of a sudden a dash of hot wind hit the kite of my mind and plunged it toward earth. What is that dash of hot wind? Thought, particularly around desire, wanting the things of the world, wanting to see my children again. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, the mother crab never comes out of her hole. Why? Because her progeny are down there. So she never gets to see the beach, frolic around. So this is what people think about the world. The world brings them back to this lower state of consciousness. So you're not monks, and maybe you're not having visions of Brahman yet, but you can adopt this ideal and the ability around it to hold knowledge of Brahman as intense concentration without any concept in it. Isn't that a beautiful English way of putting it? See? If you heard the Sanskrit for that, it wouldn't register to you right now. But in English, there are ways of putting this that can actually help you understand the formless Brahman. When the mind can't really understand the formless Brahman, because the mind is a form. It takes formless to understand formless. So that's why they used to say, Sramakrishna, you tell him, well, the seers say that, you can't realize Brahman with this mind. And Sramakrishna said, well, hold on a minute here. You can realize Brahman with the pure mind. See? So they've been trying to realize God with impure mind. That's what people are trying to do. They're blaming God for everything that happens to them, praying to God to be released. God has nothing to do with your comfort zones or your sufferings. That's your business. What you have to do to realize Brahman is to envision it as intense concentration without form. And that will begin to create a samskara of formlessness in your mind. It will open a nadi, and that nadi will connect to a memory you once had in another lifetime of having a very high formless vision. It's in you somewhere. And you wouldn't be sitting in this room if you hadn't have had a taste of that already. And in this lifetime, you wouldn't be anywhere near the Dharma. See? So I spent more time on Brahman, of course, than I wanted to. What to do? There's not a lot to say about Brahman, but when something comes to you, you have to say it. That's the Indian way of doing it. You see. Others people say, you can't talk about God, don't talk about it. Not that highest level of God. But it didn't stop the Indian rishis from doing it. That's Dharma we're talking about. It's allowable. It's more than a concession for us. It's actually an inspiration. Ishvara, we're talking about that this week as one of the ideals. Swami Vivekananda said, Ishvara is the sum total of individuals, yet he himself is also an individual in the same way as the human body is a unit of which each cell is an individual. So, like this is Ishvara and all these cells are jivas, right? They're all living in this one. So he describes Ishvara as this one soul of all souls in which all the souls are abiding. As far as God with form can be described, that's it. He goes on to say, the collective is God. The component is the soul, or jiva. The existence of Ishvara therefore depends on that of the jiva as the body on the cell and vice versa. Swamiji could get even more terse than that. He could say, Ishvara only exists in your mind. There are people in the West, even in pop songs, who have picked up on that kind of thing. God is a concept by which we measure our pain. We're thinking about God as a concept. It's really, we're inventing God in our own mind. And people have come back to combat that, saying, God does not exist. And other people then get hurt by that because they want to believe in God. But when we say God does not exist, we say that the human mind cannot comprehend God in the realm of concept. So Vivekananda says the highest concept of God that the human mind can comprehend is Ishvara. But nevertheless, it is a product of your mind. Now, there are philosophies that want to make Ishvara everything and then make the jiva subservient to it. That's dualism, and that's qualified non-dualism. The Advaitas don't like that turn of things. I and my Father are one happens when you have the highest realization. You may have to go out for 40 days or 40 nights or sit under the Bo tree for the same amount of time to have that non-dual realization. But if you do not have that non-dual realization, your qualified and dualistic levels will be much less sweeter, more incomplete. I mean, imagine how ecstatic Christ was when he came out of the forests with, I and my Father are one. It's like saying, thumbing his nose at the Pharisees and the Romans both. There's nothing you can do to hurt me. I'm one with Brahman. But anything before that is attended by fear, Gaudapada says. You're a nervous wreck if you don't have that I and my Father are one. Nishchaya-like resolve around it. See? Fully confident in that's the case. Not lip service, not hearsay by yourself or your ego or some religionist or some seer even. It's got to be your own realization. Until then, Ishvara is just a concept in your mind. But it's also a potential eternal companion for life. Life means in the body. Life is in the body. There's no life outside the body unless you want to call it eternal life. Just read Brahman and you'll understand that. See? Does it sound like Brahman has a life? If you could find Brahman somewhere in a form, you could say, get a life, Brahman. But it'd say, I'm fine without it, thanks. I think I'll just stay eternal. Eternal life if you want, but that's even a come down for me. It's a put down. I have no life. And I have no death either. Do I have to sing it? Maybe I should, because I often do. Na mrityur na shanka, na me jati beda, pita naiva me naiva, mata na janmaha, chidananda rupaha, shivoham, shivoham. Death, for never a birth had I. Na mrityur na shanka na me jati beda. Jati's birth, mrityur's death. I have no death, for never a birth had I. Pita naiva me naiva. Pita means father. Mata ma janmaha. What's mata? Mother. I have no parents. I have no father and mother. I'm unborn. Only somebody who knew this would know that Brahman is formless. Ishvara also has a formless form, but if you want to take God into the realm of the mind, you're going to have to go to the gods and goddesses. And of all the gods and goddesses, you're going to want the one who presides over all gods and goddesses, Ishvara. There have been many questions about that. What about these lesser deities? Shall I go to them? Like Brahmananda just said when he said that. Asked that question here, right? Well, there are many gods and goddesses, and they suit the temperaments of different beings. But Sri Krishna says in the Gita, the worshippers of the lesser gods go to the lesser gods. The worshippers of the ancestors go to the ancestors. The worshippers of the Bhutas go to the Bhutas. What are Bhutas? Physical beings. And hell beings. Bhutas. But my devotees come to me, he finishes. See? So how can you come to the formless Brahman? See, where is that? See? My hailstone's going to have to merge to do that, and I'm not coming back again. Sounds like Lord Buddha, right? Have no hope for me, for the world, forevermore. I'm gone and gone forever. So you can't posit Ishvara against Brahman. You have to see them as according to the temperaments of living beings. And each one is right for that particular soul at that particular time. And if you make a separation between them, then you're a philosophy or religion that's done a disservice to eternal Dharma. Argue about them and such nonsense. You have to see them rightly. No, this is beautiful. You have Gaudapada and Vivekananda telling us about this. Now let's go on to, before the break, Mahanirvana. That's a nice ideal. It means the supreme state. Lord Buddha is, of course, fully qualified to talk about that because he had nirvana. He even had Mahanirvana at the end of his life. Be not a traveler in samsara. It's his first statement. Be not a traveler in samsara. Samsara is rounds of birth and death without knowing your true nature. Be not a victim of endless sorrows. The Buddhas declare nirvana to be the supreme state. That's formless, by the way. That verily is the safe haven and the supreme refuge. After arriving at that state, a man is emancipated from all suffering. We look at Ishvara. Did Ishvara suffer? Probably more than any of us when it came into the form, right? There's a beautiful saying Sri Ramakrishna has in the Gospel when someone asks him, he says, Brahman weeps when caught in the net of its own Maya. I mean, that's just a Zen koan for Vedanta. It's like a Vedantic koan when you think about it. It's so contrary to itself, yet it opens up the real nature of embodiment as opposed to or contrasted to disembodiment. Even Brahman weeps caught in the net of his own Maya. That's Ishvara you're describing. And it's also you, because you're also Brahman, Atman, caught in the net of your own Maya. So Lord Buddha doesn't leave any doubt here, does he? It's the supreme state, nirvana. Across the board is Jivan Mukti. And we talked about that last week, right? We had all these two charts about Jivan Mukta in front of you. We went through Vashishta's list of what he describes as a Jivan Mukta. Right next to it, we went to Patanjali's list, Father of Yoga's list, about what a Jivan Mukta is. Remember that? And then we also looked at another chart on that teaching of Jivan Mukta. So what does Shankara say about this? Here's Shankara here. I left this up, we didn't go through the chart, but if you want to look at it at the break or come up afterwards, the live stream, you can see it. There's Shankara riding on that tiger of Advaita Vedanta and his description in the Vivekachudamani of what a free soul is. So that we got Vashishta's view last week, we got Patanjali's view last week, we can get Swami Shankara's view this week. He says about Jivan Mukta, is one who has nearly forgotten duality, whose heart is filled with bliss and whose mind harbors no impressions, who is indifferent to time and its phases, into whom enjoyments enter like rivers, leaving no effects, devoid of I, and who knows no difference between the world and Brahman. So the classic Vedantic teaching is separate the wheat from the chaff, right? Brahman and the world. Brahman is real, the world's unreal. So a Jivan Mukta arrived at such a state through that practice of detachment, discrimination, that pretty soon it saw no difference between Brahman and the world. So you can't stay at a neti-neti level or at a shunyata, empty level. If you're talking about Vedanta and Buddhist practice, you have to go to iti-iti or to Mahanirvana. Besides, as I said to my relative last night in that email, you can come down from the highest state when you've had it. But if you've never had it, you're restricted to the first two steps of dualism and qualified non-dualism. Why not just have this experience of non-duality? Know for certain that you're one with Brahman, or that you are Buddha nature. Then you can come back down like they did. You see. They're showing up in a body again. But they have something that most of the other souls that come back don't have. Well, and there's a list of them right there. Fearlessness, no attachment to the body, a mind that has no impressions. This is what you're talking about when you're talking about somebody who has had the non-dual experience, vijnana, and has come back again, armed with what to do. They have a plan for you. If God ever has a plan for you, those souls have it. Otherwise, it's a mere lip service kind of statement. Let's look at the other three before our break. Another ideal is Brahma Gyan. My teacher used to say that in every lecture at least 2 or 3 times. Brahma Gyan. In the state of Brahma Gyan, one sees God both within and without. One sees that it is God that has become body, mind, life, and soul. So don't profess this at home, kids, until you actually realize it. Take his word for it. A man attains Brahmagyan as soon as his mind is annihilated With the annihilation of the mind dies the ego, which says I. The ego is somewhere in my mind. How am I going to get to it? Well, if I annihilate the whole mind, it'll die too. It's sort of like blowing up a cave with a bear in it or something, you see. There's so many caves and chambers in there, I'll never find the bear if I go look at it, so I'm just going to drop a bomb on the whole mountain. That'll kill it. So you look for the ego like that, you see. The mind has thoughts, the mind has knowledge, it has wisdom. There are many things the mind harbors, like concepts, karmas, memories of last lifetimes. There's a lot in the mind. And the ego is there, all mixed up with them. See? So if you want Brahmagyan, if you want to get rid of the ego, this Brahmagyan is the best way to do it. Then, penultimately, there's Prema Bhakti. I put these two across from each other because they're really the highest that Jnanam has to offer and the highest that Bhakti has to offer. Path of wisdom, path of devotion. And in between is nicely placed service. It's a kind of two wings of the bird. Here's the body, here's the right wing, left wing, and here's the head, Brahman. So you could put a bird over that, as I've done in other charts, to show how the four yogas go together. Prema Bhakti, let's go to someone like Prahlada. Sri Ramakrishna talking about Narada and Prahlada a lot in the Gospel. In Chaitanya, he loves these three bhaktas very, very much and goes into ecstasy whenever he thinks about them. Prahlada said, in the incomparable state of Prema Bhakti, one's newly awakened awareness focuses on divine reality. Newly awakened awareness focuses on God. The devotee dwells ecstatically in this fresh revelation, as all of existence naturally worships Ishvara without interruption. The entire collection of worlds and lokas then becomes a never-ending puja to and for the Lord. So that's bhakti, or devotional path's highest attainment. And so then, why pit it against Advaita's highest attainment? Why not say, attain one and then enjoy the other? Because Holy Mother used to say about that that Divine Mother gives Prema Bhakti to some souls and gives Brahmagyan to others. Those whom she wants to be teachers, she gives both. Because those teachers are going to have both knowledge and devotion. Sort of like Brahmananda telling that monk who was averse to worship, go do puja. So he's an example of someone who did puja and who also had the highest realization. So he can speak from that position of authority, saying, no, this will be good for you. Broaden yourself out. Develop all four yogas. And speaking of that, let's go to this last one before the break. Mahat Seva is service of the great ones. It's also Lord Vashishta includes that in on his four sentinels. And there's different other seers who hold this as the highest ideal. Actually, you could say maybe this is Vivekananda's new dispensation. We know Sri Ramakrishna is just bringing back the eternal Dharma in an order that will propagate it amongst the world in different languages. But you might say Vivekananda wants to see this great service going on of God and mankind. Not of the ego and not service of mankind, service of God and mankind. Work is worship, labor is love, he used to say. So about that, Sri Krishna says, the unenlightened act out of attachment. Thus, the enlightened must act out of non-attachment, desirous of guiding the multitudes. The 7 great rishis and 4 manus were born of my mind. They serve and sustain all creatures. The wise ones, imbued with equanimity, renounce personal gain and serve the great and the small alike. So we have a beautiful amalgam here, if you will, of beings who represent the highest in bhakti, the highest in jnanam, the highest in Advaita, and who also turn their minds towards service of God and mankind. So let's think about those 4 yogas and this beautiful, great companion, eternal companion that we have of religion in its truest and most pure state, and how we bring it back to the world. Thank you for your kind attentions, and we'll take 15 minutes. Live streaming audience will return at that point. and all of us reconvene here to speak more about the Dharma, the eternal Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, or what we were calling the new dispensation through the advent of Sri Ramakrishna in the mid-1800s when he lived. And we took this topic called the Eternal Companion, and we've talked about the luminaries a lot. Of course, it's hard to separate them, but then we're working in the idea of religion and Ishvara into this week, because we only have 3 weeks to accomplish. We'll talk about Brahman and meditation next week, the hard to reach, the difficult to approach. But Ishvara isn't that difficult to approach, which is probably proven and instanced by the fact that millions of people in many different religions follow Ishvara. That is their God. So you could say in this world, God with form is really the path. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that bhakti is the path for this age. He meant for the Kali Yuga. In an age where people were dependent on food, as if in other ages food wasn't so important. They could sustain themselves through spiritual nourishment in ages long past. Of course, when we speak like this, we're not speaking in the restricted realm of the physical only, like evolution. That, we saw 500 million march of the hominidae, and mankind's only been on Earth for that period, and before that was all, chordates and other small microorganisms, and we don't know what's coming after. That's all inside of a historical little cycle. And that cycle is going on inside of other larger cycles of time, in which live your ancestors, in which live the gods and goddesses, in which live the saints and seers, and the Trinity. That is, other deeper lokas. So you have to kind of look at it as a little cycle of physical things going on here, but all those physical things are circular. Like Buddha said, he wanted to get you off that wheel, samsara, and into worship of your ancestors, and then don't get stuck in the worship of your ancestors, but go to the gods and goddesses, the devas and devis, and then also do your service to Mahat Seva, on the other chart we had, and all of that. But the point being is that you don't have to call yourself an animal, and you don't have to think of yourself as monkeys and apes as being your ancestors. That's just on the physical level with the body. But if you're not the body, then your ancestors are probably more like your real ancestors, human ancestors. They're still alive. They still live in a heaven. That's a word we use a little cautiously in Vedanta, but it's what we understand. And then that heaven exists inside a higher heaven where gods and goddesses are prevailing. And certain votaries go to those beings, Krishna says in the Gita. That higher heaven lives inside a realm of tapar loka, of great souls who are presiding over the gods and goddesses. So I'm just saying that if you're looking at things just on the level of physical evolution, Dharma will not really ring true to you and make sense to you. You have to go deeper, say even make your dreams more lucid, or question deep sleep, what happens to you when you go formless, and question why you act the way you do and think the way you do and look the way you do, to find out that karma is responsible, your past lifetimes. All of these things are connected in Dharma, and you can completely shut that down to yourself and become fully unaware of it. As far as the seers are concerned, that's called samsara. You're just on a wheel of birth and death without knowing, number one, that you're never born and you never die, like the beautiful hymn I sang before we closed the first half. And number two, that you can get off that cycle of birth and death, and you're going to need an eternal companion to do that, you see. So what is our eternal companion? Who is your companion, as we say? And we've been looking at Ishvara just now, and if you say the word Ishvara, you're probably going to have to, as we were talking at the break just now, you're going to have to include the word avatar, because really Ishvara, we feel, just one of those. And it also appears as Ishvari. So the Divine Lord and the Divine Mother of the universe, the ultimate complex of all souls as one unit, the collective, as Vivekananda was saying in that chart, in that quote on that chart we studied in the first half. You have to think of that as one grand ideal, like one body with lots of cells, and all those cells are all these beings, not just human beings. Ancestors, gods and goddesses are also cells in that one Ishvara. All these worlds exist in Ishvara. All the heavens exist, all the lokas, all the akashas. And then that Ishvara you can envision as living in one infinite space of consciousness. That's Brahman. See? So it's a form that's come out of formlessness and appeared to you. It's a beautiful image. I've yet to do a chart on it, but the burning pillar kind of idea. People usually think that they're the burning pillar and other beings and gods and everything are coming to them, but you've got that wrong. Ishvara is the burning pillar. And it's just like this huge pillar that's magnetic, and you have your soul's an iron filing, and you're being attracted toward that burning pillar through a series of lifetimes, and getting closer and closer to it, or covering up that iron filing and getting further and further away from it, as the case may be, depending on your devotion, your wisdom, your openness, your abilities, your karmas, your samskaras, and so forth. We get into Sanskrit words. So a sort of preamble there about how when you talk about Ishvara as an eternal companion, avatar is going to have to figure in very strongly there. There's only one Ishvara, Ishvari, ultimately, but avatars are many. And there's a story in the Gita, that is, I think it's in the Uddhava Gita, where Arjuna is professing this, or Uddhava may be professing this great love for Krishna. Oh, you're the only avatar. And Krishna stops him and says, come with me, takes him around back of the house or mansion, points to a tree and says, look at that tree, what do you see? And he says, I see many fruits. Go closer. And he said, oh, I see there's many faces on that fruit, on those fruits. And Krishna says, there's as many avatars as that. I'm not the only one. So if you're looking at Krishna as one with Ishvara, then you could say all of those are manifestations of Krishna. But don't forget there are avatars of Shiva, of Shiva too, and avatars of Christianity, at least one. And there are Buddha fields of Buddhas. This is all a part of the whole picture, and we can't be narrow or fundamentalist when we take that look, especially not now that Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has come and opened up universality to all of us, that we can have this open mind, and we should seek a universal mind. It's one of the highest things that you can have. And beings who had visions of Brahman and who had nirvana, who gained prema bhakti and brahmagyan and so forth, who became living liberated souls, they have this universal mind. And they say, ekam sat vipra bahuda vedanti, there are many paths, but there's just one goal. There's that one ideal, many paths leading to it. I chanted that at the beginning of the class today from the Rig Veda. So let's look at some of the great sayings of the world's avatars, because those are important. We look at this chart probably once a year, if not more often, so that we fill in our Dharma teachings on the great eternal companion that we're seeking. These are our highest companions. Remember, my caution about it was sometimes they're very rarely seen in the body, whereas the saints and seers and sages and so forth are all seen more often. So there would be eternal companions on hand for you if you seek them every life, like gurus would be also eternal companions in that sense. Probably more readily available to you. Upside of guru, of course, is going to be, well, you can find it and get a mantra. Downside would be, is he authentic or is he spurious? Is he a fake or is he real? So you'll have to look at the 4 qualifications for a guru that he gives in the Vivekachudamani to make that decision yourself. And be qualified to do it too. Sri Ramakrishna just said it takes a jeweler to recognize the value of a diamond. So you say if Christ comes again and you're a Christian but you say that's not Christ, then maybe you haven't developed being a jeweler yet. So you could actually recognize that great soul again when he comes. That's going to be a problem then. You'll be following an antichrist and preaching at the same time not to follow an antichrist. What about that problem? See? So to be a jeweler, you'll always know when a divine incarnation comes, and by his fruits thou shalt know him. By his fruits. Those fruits will be Dharma. They'll be like these great ideals. Knower of Brahman, manifestation of Ishvara, an avatar, full of wisdom, love, compassion, and service. The 4 yogas will be there in force. The 4 in force inside of that great avatar. Well, here's some of my descriptions that I put together about avatars, because quotes about them are rather rare. There are hosts of illumined souls that populate the atmosphere of higher wisdom. Seers, saints, sages, yogis, munis, siddhas, etc. The divine incarnation transcends all of these. So some of the questions that I was being asked by one student who couldn't stay for the second half are getting answered now here. So that's why these live streaming classes being recorded will be good to look back on. Another quote that I put together: an avatar usually appears on earth in the company of divine companions, like Buddha's Noble Eight, Christ's 12 apostles, and Ramakrishna's 16 direct disciples. So that's another way in which you can recognize them. They're attended by these great beings, and probably both men and women, like Ramakrishna and Holy Mother coming with him in this time. In incarnation of Saraswati and Kali and so forth, we say. And these beings deserve to be worshipped. In fact, you can even sing that. Shankara often puts that together in verses. Guru Charanam Bhuja Nirbara Bhaktaha Samsara Dacharad Bhava Muktaha Sandriya Manasa Niyamadevam Rakshasi Nija Hridayam Devam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Mudhamate Faste Kagate Kale Kainahi Rakshati Dukrin Kadane. So it's a beautiful verse in the Bhaja Govindam, which sings, through deep devotion to the lotus feet of your preceptor, your guru, become released soon from transmigratory processes. Word for that is samsara, or maya. Thus, through the discipline of the mind and senses, you will finally behold that deity who resides in your own heart. That's Ishvara. So they meditate upon Ishvara through a great avatar soul with these kinds of practices and this kind of acumen, this kind of resolve. It's very important. And those great avatars come, although they're not always called that. It's a Sanskrit word that means that which descends, avatar. That which descends. So it's coming out of consciousness, formlessness, and taking a form, just like all of us did, only in a more conscious way, sometimes fully conscious, unveiled completely like an avatar, like the great avatars that we know. And so there are other words for it, like Buddha fields and saviors and incarnations. There are words in other languages you can use. But I mention that because here are 2 quotes by the Buddha. They who regard the body as a flake of foam on the waves shall no longer see death. So Buddhism very famous for its denial of the existence of the body as the real self. The Tantricists, their very first evolutive Maya is taking the body to be the self. That's the first no-no. Of 16. And then there's another list of another 24. But that first evolute is mamakara, I think they call it, or sometimes it's called deha jasa hamkara. Thinking deha, the body, to be the self. That's like the first primal error of embodiment. If you're embodied and you know that the soul is doing the embodiment, no problem. It's the sport. Go down there and help others. Further your knowledge, whatever it is that brings you down to earth. But if you think the body is the self, then that's the first of Maya evolutes. You're off on a wrong footing. And Lord Buddha himself, in his Eightfold Noble Path, one of the greatest of those is right orientation. There are 8 things he wants you to have in the Four Noble Truths. To be a Buddhist is right orientation. So you make sure you start off on that right footing. He also says, in the Dhammapada, they who discern truth as truth and illusion as illusion walk the right road. You might put this right next to the wheat and the chaff teaching of Jesus. The discrimination teaching of Vedanta. Just made it up perfectly with that. In other words, you have to do that distinction, that discernment process between the real and the unreal. Buddhism, Vedanta, both very big on that as one of the requisites for spiritual life. If you don't have discrimination, ability to separate the wheat from the chaff, then you're not going to make it very far. With picking a guru, with getting a mantra, with realizing your Atman, with knowing what's the difference between the real revealed scriptures and the fake scriptures, or the authentic scriptures and those which have a mixture of sand and sugar in them, as Ramakrishna said. You want to be like the ant in that case, be able to take the sugar and leave the sand behind at the picnic, right? So he often used to say that about discrimination. It's a nice story for us. Be like an ant if you're looking at those scriptures. But with the revealed scriptures, if you stick with them, you don't have to have that discrimination. It's telling you the truth as it is. Like the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, in our tradition, Brahma Sutras. And although you need a good guide for the Brahma Sutras, they're hard to understand. Let's look at some of the other great teachers here. I'm calling them Mahavakyas, great sayings of the world's avatars, so I'm being generous with doling out that word avatar, and I'm also not being conscious about offending other religions, because I hope they take it as not as an insult, but as a compliment, that avatars being dawned upon these great beings, because there's really no avatars in say, Islam. You only get prophets, so you don't really want to call Muhammad like God himself. He's a messenger. So you don't want to, tread on those kinds of teachings. So in general, I'm just using this because Muhammad is listed here. And these are great sayings of these great souls in any case. Like, for instance, say Moses, "Hear ye, O Israel, our Lord is one God." Non-dual statement there. And non-dual statements are not in abundance in the Old Testament, I found, having spent hours looking through it. But here's a beautiful statement that I think epitomizes teachings from India in the Song of Moses. He says, "Thou remainest ever the same, and thy years will not change that." So if we were in satsang right now, I'd be asking you, what does that mean? You see, let's get into some discussion about that. But it's pretty much, isn't it pretty much just like saying, "Nam Richor na Shanka, Name Jati Beda, Shivoham, Shivoham." It's like, I have no birth, I have no death, right? Saying, thou ever remains the same, and thy years will not change that. So no matter how many bodies you take, no matter how old you get, how many lifetimes you've taken on, you remain the same. There's a beautiful statement on non-duality in the Song of Moses, I think. There's also another one in the Song of Moses. It, we have to just kind of wonder what it is here. It is not hidden. Neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, nor is it beyond the sea. Verily, it is nigh unto thee, nestled deeply in thine own heart. Isn't that a beautiful message out of Judaism? Or a Song of Moses? All of those statements are very non-dual, very telling too, that the deep core of all the world's religions is non-duality. It's this ultimate truth. And that these are some of the great sayings. Probably in Judaism, great sayings like this are more hidden, buried, because those kinds of religions are very, very careful about letting out that kind of wisdom to just anyone. So that might be the reason why we can't find them, or we may have lost track of them. But if you can find instances of that in the realizations of Abraham and Moses and so forth, then Judaism had this non-dual core as its backdrop, and it was the most important thing. And just like any other religion up to the time of Jesus, it fell apart. It lost that non-dual core and the emphasis on it, and the teachings got lost, and the religion fell into a disreputable state. That's what we're just saying here about these four ideals. Religion is potentially your eternal companion, but you have to be very careful, like an ant amidst sand and sugar, to be able to discriminate what are the teachings that apply to you and your relationship with Brahman or Ishvara, and how it will get you there, and which ones need to be put aside, like sand. Actually a good teaching for the Middle East, because there's so much sand there. So I like that very much. It is not hidden, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, nor is it beyond the sea. What is it here? We would be tempted as Vedantists to say Atman, but we'd have to say probably the Spirit. See? Something like that. The Spirit is not far off. It's nigh unto thee. I like that he says, and nor is it beyond the sea, because people go looking for it for everywhere, but it's inside of them. Sort of like the song I heard last week that I was singing. The spirit in the sky, the spirit in the sky. See, there's no spirit in the sky. There's just air and ether. The spirit exists in you and I, not in the sky. So change the lyrics. You can still rhyme them. I swear to Jesus, it's not now or it's not by and by. There's no spirit in the sky. You can even make them Christian. That spirit exists in you and I. Where else would it be? And we missed one of Lord Buddha. Shine out for thyself as thine own light. Shine out as thine own light. Don't put it off somewhere else. Across, as we go, there's Shiram. Illumination dawns on the human mind by stages. That's not a slow growth teaching. It's progressive. You want to make growth in each lifetime. It'd be nice if you could realize the Atman in 6 months. Swami Vivekananda, somebody just laughed and covered their mouth. Oh, like that's going to happen. See, but Swami Vivekananda held that ideal up for people who are all of a sudden get the grace of the divine, for instance, or all of a sudden their karmas they've been working on for years all of a sudden go away from their practice. See, it's like practice. You do it all the time, you don't get anywhere. But you don't realize, Holy Mother said, that this practice has an effect much later on down the line, so you keep it up. So if you've meditated for 10 years and all of a sudden, hey, where did my delusion go? I feel great. Where are my karmas? They're gone. So it's not like it happens right now. Like I just said, by and by. But it can happen to you right away when the time is right. Like striking a match in a dark room, Sri Ramakrishna said. Sri Ram, always one of our favorites, says, the destruction of things is their return to the cause that produced them. probably my favorite of all his sayings. The destruction of things is their return to the cause that produced them. It's like death doesn't exist, destruction doesn't exist, none of these things really exist. You can't kill anything. You can't destroy anything. Because what you're looking at out here is just its outer manifestation. Its true essence is in your mind. That's why Vivekananda said, you can destroy the clay cup, but you can't destroy the thought, clay cup. And out of that thought, clay cup, will come hundreds and thousands of other clay cups. And it's true of cups, it's also true of souls. That is, living beings. They'll come at you by the dozens. Try and commit genocide, they'll just all come back later. And some of those will have a problem with you. They'll be your karma to pay. Another last one from Sri Ram. The idea of I and thou is a fruit of the soul's ignorance. That's a teaching against separation. The idea of you and I is a fruit of the soul's ignorance. You and I are not two, we are one. One potential avatar said that. I won't bring up any names. That's why we like to sing Shri Ramachandra Kripal Bhajamana Arana Bhavabhaya Dharanam Nava Kancha Lochana Kancha Mukakara Kancha Kara Dharanam Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ramachandra Kripal Bhajamana Arana Bhavabhaya Dharanam. Beautiful bhajan in 7-beat cycle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. They like to write in odd time signatures in India. They haven't got a obsession with 4/4 time like we do. And so they put it to beautiful lyrics with meaning behind the lyrics, unlike we do in the West. Real meaning, dharmic meaning, that will help inspire you and help you attain the goal that you really came here for. So Sri Ram always brings up inspiration like that. Across the board, Jesus, the Lord, the Christ. I and my Father are one, of course. One of his greatest statements to that non-dual effect. No man hath seen God at any time. That's more of a veiled statement, whereas there was no doubt about the first statement. He says, no man hath seen God at any time. He's telling you that God does not come into form. Not even when he came to earth. When he came into earth, that was the avatar form coming straight from Ishvara, as we would put it in our tradition. And what you're looking at there is his illusory body. You know, that's why the Buddhists say, there's that saying, if you see Buddha on the road, kill him. Because that's not the real Buddha. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek statement, but the idea is philosophical. Basically, you're not looking at the real thing when you see anyone's body. You'll see more light coming off of Ishvara. You'll get more teachings coming out of Avatar and so forth. But don't mistake their body for the essence. They're not doing that. So why should you? So caution about the ego, attachment to the ego. And religion falls. One of the reasons for its fall, why it can't be our safest eternal companion right away until we remake it, is that very reason, is for ego worship and so forth, attachment to the body. And stick to the essence. See the essence in all beings. That's also part of the teaching there of same-sidedness, right? In man, in woman, in American or Indian, you're all princes, but you're acting like paupers, my teacher used to say. See the same in all. Rich, poor, high, low, royalty, servants, the same Atman. Practice that same-sidedness. He also said, love not the world nor the things that are in the world. And the one I quoted earlier, verily I say unto thee, that he who loves his life shall lose it, but he who hates his life shall receive it again in eternity. These are some very direct and, yes, if you must say it, slap your hand kind of teachings in Christianity. You're reaching out for the world. You shouldn't love the things of the world. What are you doing that for? He says. Why are you amassing wealth? Why is your church amassing wealth? Serve the poor, help the poor with it, and then you can redeem that. Never grasp at it. One of the best examples I saw, another version of it, another manifestation of it in India 3 weeks ago when I went to the Bellarmine, the headquarters of Ramakrishna, and saw that they had built this huge hall on their land at great expense to themselves and sacrifice and work. That can feed how many? 8,000 people or something? 20,000 people. Yeah, I think they were feeding 6,000 or 8,000 people at that time because it wasn't quite finished. But when it's finished, it'll feed 20,000 people in Calcutta. Now, flash back to 20 years ago when I was in India, when they had big, huge clay pots. Speaking of clay cups, the size of this room with ladders going up them, and huge amounts of khichdi in it, with these huge ladles that the monks would climb up, dip the ladle, pass it back down, fill the little bowl of the person in line. And that line was stretching all the way out of Bellarmine, all the way down the street into Calcutta, as far as you can see. Nobody was crowding either, by the way. But they were feeding all the people in that poor district of Belur. It was not by any coincidence that the land for Bellarmine was found there in that poor district, because in the future, tens and 100 years later, then you would find the Ramakrishna order right there in the poor district feeding the poor. So, and not just the poor, the devotees. So back to how I got into that statement. If you do have money coming to you, if you have a way of making it come to you, use it to serve the poor. That's the greatest example, because there's not one monk there amongst those thousands of monks and hundreds of brahmacharis in the Ramakrishna order that owns a thing. No land, no money, no bank account. That's a great example of how to work selflessly without any attraction to the world. So, what do you say, Jesus? Love not the world nor the things that are in the world. You can be rich, but still not love them. I'm not saying that that's a moral teaching only. You have to be discriminating and keep spirituality and these high qualities in your mind as you handle the wealth of the world. Or, if it's not given to you to do that, then you have more freedom to practice your spiritual life. Consider yourself blessed if you don't have a lot. Across the board then to Sri Krishna, he says, perception of the end of knowledge and truth is true knowledge. What is opposed to it is declared by the seers as ignorance. That's an interesting statement. So knowledge has to have an end. There are plenty amongst us in our society who consider knowledge to be the end. Scientific knowledge, secular knowledge, business knowledge, professional knowledge, political knowledge, whatever the knowledge is of your particular field, that's the end and be all of life for you. And you can make money off that. But it's an evil if it doesn't end in truth. Isn't that a beautiful teaching by Sri Krishna out of the Gita? Consider it an evil, Arjuna, if it doesn't end in truth. It has to lead somewhere. You know, and the same thing was said by Vivekananda about action. Action is an evil. Work is an evil. It's burning the very vitals of humanity if it doesn't lead to knowledge. So here we're getting a little step-by-step teaching here from these great souls. Action, engaged in properly, gives you knowledge. Knowledge, used rightly and developed, gives you truth. You might even be able to put wisdom somewhere in there. Knowledge to wisdom to truth. So, are the scriptures of the world, as ancient as they are, outmoded and outdated now? Should we not listen to them anymore? Is this making sense to you, where you haven't heard sense since you were born? You might have even encountered some gurus who haven't been speaking sense to you. But this Dharma speaks sense. It's not from the ego. It's not from any desire to convert. It's universal, and it appeals to all people who are open and will be attracted to the goal of enlightenment in this lifetime. Sri Krishna also says, indivisible, it dwells in creatures as if divided. So, Brahman, Atman, is indivisible, but when it comes into forms, it appears as if it does get divided. That appearance is the four-letter word for that. Maya makes everything seem divided when it isn't. So beware of Maya. See through it from a distance, back off. Get a new perspective. Everything is unified, it's making it look, Maya is making it look as if it's diverse. You want to know another characteristic of tantric evolute of Maya? It's called Vaichitra, varieties. Maya gives you varieties, and they distract you and takes you away from God. So, I've given you 2 of the 16 evolutes of Maya right there. Actually, that might be a mala of Maya, but Vaichitra, it means an imperfection. But that's one of the things that is imposed upon people when they enter the body. Oh, here, look at all these varieties we have for you. Here, get involved in them. See? And nobody stands up and says, who's giving me these varieties? I doubt this. I don't really want them. I want to know where they came from. It's like Sri Ramakrishna's teaching of the man who went to Calcutta, and it's famous for his flower gardens. But there's like 6 or 7 of them. He has just one day. He wants to see the best garden. What does he do? He doesn't run around in taxis. You don't do that in Calcutta. I mean, you should have a plan. If you haven't been there, you'd know what I mean. Instead, he goes to the owner of the gardens and says, which is your best garden? The man tells him, oh, I have a very beautiful favorite garden. You want to take this route, go there. You have just a day to see that. Perfect. So you don't waste your time with varieties. You find out who's at the source of these varieties, and you go there, and as a result of that, you get everything. Spiritual life will give you everything, and you won't have to possess it, own it, or get attached to it, or get karma from it. Sound like a good deal to you? It's the best. Final saying of Sri Krishna, no one should weep for the dead or the living. All of us were before, and we shall not cease hereafter. One man came to Jesus, and Jesus wanted him to follow him. He said, come with me. Oh, I'll come with you, Lord, but first I have to bury my dead father. Let the dead bury the dead. You come with me and proclaim eternal life. Didn't want him to bury his father. So talk about varieties. How many varieties of funerals are there? Or funeral arrangements? Or for that matter, another kind of funeral called wedding. See, how many varieties are there of that out there to suck you in? And clothes, and relatives, and dinner parties, and lists, and see, what about the Lord? Should I sing another song about Ramachandra? See, you flatter the millionaire, but you forget to worship the Lord who owns all 7 worlds. You're talking about this one little world, a pittance $1 million here in one person's possession. Then you forget to flatter the Lord of the whole universe who owns all 7 lokas. What a fool are you, see? That's in a song. That's the lyrics of the song. So, no one should weep for the dead or the living. All of us were before, and shall not cease hereafter. Economy of words there. The grammar's even a little odd on purpose. It's biblical. It's like reading biblical things. So when you read the Gita, you're reading that kind of terse, direct statement from the minds and mouths and divine lips of these avatars. Here's then the bottom three, let's start with Muhammad. He says, all of you have issued from the one. So if he's a messenger, fine, he's a prophet, peace be upon him, then we have to say that he holds a non-dual stance like we do. All of you have issued from the one. So we'd have to go to the pundits to find out the actual dynamics of that issuing, but we have it on good authority that that same-sidedness is in Moses too. And that's Zoroaster there, best image I could find of him. Zoroaster says, there is nothing worth loving that is not of the light. Isn't it sort of like what both Krishna and Christ were saying up here, that love not the things of the world. So those things aren't of the light. Those things are the darkness of the collective mind. Well, how do we know the collective mind's dark? Because of desire. How do we know the illumined mind is full of light? Because of absence of desire. You can't put it any clearer than that. No doubt there are higher desires. There are teachings on it given by Holy Mother. But why even bring them up when nobody's in possession of them around you? How many people are saying, I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to get enlightened. I want to be this. It's I want money, I want possessions, I want a family, I want a husband, I want money. Those are desires. Those are base desires. And you could say there's a certain kind of practicality in them, but beware of diversity and diversions and vichitra. It's these varieties that take you off the track. Stay focused in yoga. And then Shankara is there. He says, the seer sees all as one spirit. He also says, the world exists no longer when this mental dream is finished. So a lot of these teachings here can kind of be reflected and explained philosophically by Shankara when he says, the world exists no longer when this mental dream is finished. He's saying that a lot of these things that are being mentioned here on the negative side of things is due to your dreaming process. Your waking dream, for instance. We know Ramana Maharshi made that famous statement. This here is dream number 1. You go to sleep tonight, it's dream number 2. So waking state is also a dream, and you have to awaken from it. How do you awaken on the waking state level? The third eye has to open. You have to see all this as Brahman. That's the awakening we're talking about that converts the world into Brahman, which these beautiful quotes were all about, and these ideals were all about. That's the key to uncovering them and making a move towards possessing them. There's a lot of things to be possessed out there. But what about these treasures stored up in heaven? Are you going to start possessing those and storing them up within you? Finding them there and acknowledging them, using them for the good of other living beings and so forth? Mahat Seva style. So a quick trip, no doubt, but a great chart about Mahavakyas, great sayings. And these great sayings have been culled from different scriptures by yours truly and placed there around a more Advaitic perspective that we hold. Some of them, of course, necessarily have flavors and tones of qualified non-dualism in them, because that's how you teach people who are interested in the Dharma, inform them about these higher things. But some of them are specifically non-dual and point directly to it. And that's also very good to hear. It's a part of the eternal Dharma. Now, I'm trying to remember what I have for you here. As long as we're on this idea of great sayings and religions, because this week has been given to avatar and religion. Last week was given to our are luminaries. And all of these are being considered under the subject heading of eternal companion. Like, who is our eternal companion? Who can we depend upon? Who can we go to in this day and age, in this world, when so many advices are failing us? It reminds me of a Ram Prasad song when he says, remember the first line, I can remember the rest, but he says, don't you know that everyone here is forgetful? Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. So he's singing this song about the forgetfulness of people, and that you can't depend on anyone. Your ancestors, your friends, they're all lost in this kind of darkness. So, darkness of Maya, of distraction and so forth. So the eternal companion is someone you can go to, who will immediately shed light on anything. If it's a situation, it's good. Better shed light on the truth, or wisdom, or your own karma, or your own path, or what mantra you should take, or what ideal you should be meditating on, how long you should meditate on it. Those are better things for eternal companion to advise you on. Don't you know that everyone is living in pallid imitation of everyone else? So that's a really good line in the song about people who are just following the ancestors, or following the conventional ways and means of the world, and spinning their wheels without knowing it, like a hamster. That's the best metaphor of it. It's just that hamster running around that wheel. Everyone puts that in their house and looks at it. Doesn't really get the meaning. That hamster is you. Your life is that wheel. The cage is Maya. Maybe I better find a luminary to explain this to me. Why do I have a hamster in a cage in my room, my house? Well, let me tell you, son, about Maya. So let's look here in the remaining time to a newer chart. Is the Mahavakyas of the world's avatars, the 7 ideals that we looked at, 7 great ideals. And this chart really can be paired up, that is, as a triputi, as a trio. This will give us more a look at religion as compared to the founders of the religions. And this, of course, was a beautiful cover that we've been on loan to us, the image by Swami Chaitanananda of the St. Louis Vedanta Society. We made it into a recent nectar cover in color. And I took it also for a chart here to use each of these flower buds and this each religion around the center to evince this universal nature of all religions. The quote here, Swami Vivekananda at the top, mankind ought to be taught that religions are but the varied expressions of the religion which is oneness, so that each may choose the path that suits him best. You come here and you hear the Dharma, but there's so much of the eternal Dharma mixed in with the Ramakrishna order. That is, you bring Swami Vivekananda and Swami Brahmananda, the eternal companion, and Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother, and Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, the Kali Avatar, into the picture. The Dharma itself becomes like this new dispensation. It was good before, now look at it. See? In the light of the lives that these people just lived within our time. That's another reason why an avatar will come, is to refresh. See, Krishna gives like some 3 or 4 reasons in the Gita why an avatar comes. Yes, because religion declines from age to age. And remember what Jesus said too, I've not come to destroy the words of the prophets, but to resurrect them. So that's another reason to come. We want to bring these teachings forward in the light of the new age with the new avatar, as a new dispensation. New. So fresh, a facelift to it. It was powerful before. Now we're going to show you not only how much more powerful it is than you can imagine, but how to put it in your own life and get enlightened in this lifetime. How about that? So again, if I hear Swami Vivekananda, I'll go off like this. See? He's no one like him, see? In the realm of Jnana wisdom. So let's take some of these. I know you can't read them, maybe even on the screen, because I had to put this very small. But if you come up close, of course, you could read it. But I can read these to you, and I can give you the religion. Since we are talking about the eternal companion in terms of Hinduism, that is Vedanta, then let's take this one first. You can see behind there the Om sign, as these are all different signs. There's Zoroastrian fire, and there's, the Jewish candelabra, and so forth. There's a yin-yang sign of Taoism. So each one of these religions, I've culled out a great saying from them. Here in the top one, when ahimsa, the incapacity to harm others, and dharma, the inherent goodness dwelling in the heart, are fully developed in mankind, then he is said to have attained enlightenment. Another beautiful description for enlightenment. I chanted one by Shankar at the beginning of the class, right? The Brahmaiva Jiva Hamsa Kalajaka Cha. What is enlightenment? When you see Brahman, time, space, and living beings all as Brahman, that's called enlightenment. But it has to be kept in mind all the time. You can't just acknowledge it and then go off somewhere, get lost in varieties. Think the body is yourself or something. Get lost in all of Maya's evolutes and then forget that. You have to keep that current. So here, much the same thing. When ahimsa, you know what that means, I hope, in case you don't, or people watching in the future might not, it's non-violence. When ahimsa, the incapacity to harm others, and dharma, the inherent goodness dwelling in the heart, are fully developed in mankind, then he is said to have attained enlightenment. So, how important are ahimsa and dharma to the Hindus, to the Vedicists, to the Tantricists, to the yogis, to the Buddhists, all falling under that beautiful Om sign, you see, of India. Let's go counterclockwise. Next we have Buddhism. Meditate deeply and reach the great source. Branching streams cannot compare to it. Then, sitting in utter silence, as the heavens turn and the earth is upset, you will not even wink. Sounds like someone who sat under the bo tree for 49 days, doesn't it? As the heavens turn, earth turns, and so forth, you'll not even wink. Why? Because you've discovered the great source within. And talk about varieties and distractions. Branching streams will not do it for you. Isn't that beautiful? Don't take too many religions, study too many philosophies. Find that one teacher and that one path for you, dive deep, dig that one deep well, find water. After that, you can profess universality of outlook. But find the source first, or else it's all lip service you're going to give. Hearsay. Maybe a little knowledge mixed in, you see. So very beautiful from the Buddhists. Now from Taoism. This is good too. A tall tree is at first a slender shoot. A tall tower is raised by placing one stone upon another. Journeys of many leagues begin with a single step. Be careful of your thoughts. They are the beginning of your deeds. That's just beautiful. And of course practical. It's like Taoism is. It's why people are attracted to Taoism. And the wisdom that's come out of Far East and China and so forth. And how Buddhism even got together with Taoism and Tibetan Buddhism and so forth and produced even more beautiful dharmic ways of expressing truth. But so you've heard that, probably that one. Journeys with many leagues begin with a single step. But that comes out of this beautiful saying. A tall tree is at first a slender shoot. And a temple is raised by placing one stone upon another. So, and you're not saying that just to tell you, oh, get busy and create. No, don't. That's all sankalpa. It's very much like a Buddhist and Hindu teaching. You don't want to create and build things like that. You want to be careful of your thoughts, because they're the father of your deeds. See how careful they are about thoughts? It's not just, practical wisdom, Taoist wisdom that people take it to. Put your first step out on that journey. Maybe don't even take the journey. Sit at home and meditate, clear your thoughts, and then your acts will be fine. But if you take that one step on the journey and your thoughts aren't clear, you're letting yourself in for all sorts of incidents, trials, maybe even calamities, because your mind isn't pure when you took that step. So don't mistake the Tao for this yin-yang conventional way that they explained it. Lao Tzu and others were very deep into the mind and how it causes, what Hindus called sankalpa, mental projection, and how not to fall victim to it. Now let's look at this saying from the revered Judaism. Who is the wise man? Who is ever constantly learning from others. Who is the rich man? Whoever is contented with his lot. Who is the strong man? Whoever is capable of self-mastery. Beautiful that you would use wisdom, riches, and knowledge in that way. You're really strong, if you've mastered your senses, as our tradition would say. Become a master of the senses, because that's yoga, right? 5 senses, and then connect those to your mind. And that's how you get step by step up the yogic limbs, the 8 limbs of yoga, or the eightfold path, Ashtangika Marga, Buddhism, very much similar. So you be very careful like that. Here's Islam. Thou shalt hear what no ear has heard. Thou shalt see what no eye has seen. And at last thou shalt come into that sacred presence, and thou shalt find only one sole being in place of the world and its mortal creatures. Pretty beautiful, I'd say. Very Advaitic and very true as far as what India would think of as transcendental awareness. Samadhi, nirvana, and so forth. There you find instances of it, a very definite flavor of non-dualism, of course, there in Islam. Here's Christianity's contribution to this particular chart, this garland of universal sayings. And I turned within to behold wisdom, as well as madness and folly. Then I saw that wisdom excelled folly, as far as light excels darkness. And I invested myself with her as a raiment of glory, and put her on my head as a crown of joy. A very esoteric and rare saying out of Christianity, but I found it, and when I found it I went, wow, does that really smack of the Dharmic teachings? Of course it should, coming out of the school of Lord Jesus, but particularly he looked inside to see wisdom and folly. That describes the dual mind. You might as well say, oh, well that's just manas in our tradition. What you're telling me, Jesus, is you're describing manas in India, dual mind. Wisdom and folly, both, living side by side, like a man in a cave with a bear somewhere in the back chamber, you see, or a set of bears. So that's manas right there. Then I saw how wisdom excelled folly, and I put her on my head. As I wrapped her as a cloth. Raiment means cloth or clothing. I wrapped her around me, and I put her on my head as a crown of joy. Mother wisdom. See? Shakina in Judaism had a word for it too. It's like Shakti in Sanskrit. So it's very, very beautiful, these religions. And You have to, especially at later dates like this, and even with our tradition, Hinduism and so forth, you have to look for the sugar and leave the sand behind in some cases. That's why you need a guru, you need a luminary to teach you, you need Ishvara as your ideal so that you can reach Brahman. All four of these are your eternal companion. Can't leave any of them out. Unless you're a very exceptional soul. Some people have come and said, well, let's see, Ramana Maharshi didn't have a teacher, and he made the highest goal. Well, Ramana Maharshi was born perfect. You don't know how many teachers he took in a past lifetime to get there. See, you're just looking at this one lifetime. So you can't really judge it on that. Besides, are you comparing yourself to Ramana Maharshi? You're saying that you don't need to take a teacher because he didn't? Good luck with that. So, Guru, very important. Luminaries, very important. Religion, very important. Dharma, very important. And Ishvara is at the head of all that. Is your friend in high places. Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. Just occurred to me, to hope for help or assistance from family and friends is no true solution. That's the line I couldn't remember a little bit. To hope for help from family and friends provides no profound solution. Don't you know that everyone's lost here? Everyone lives in pallid imitation of everyone else. A couple lines out of Ram Prasad's songs in India. So, yeah, that hope for help, you've been having that for lifetimes. Whether you were born with royalty, like the kings and queens of Europe, different countries, or whether you were a pauper, your parents have misled you. Your ancestors have misled you. It's only the luminaries in true religion that lead you right. And that's what we have to return to. You say, return to the source. That's a refreshing source. That's Vivekananda. As far as America is concerned, we have to go back to 1893 and figure out what happened to us. SRV's teachings is almost all about that. Ramakrishna and Holy Mother aside, Vivekananda came here and he's our first patron saint. We have not had another in America. Certainly not a harbinger like him who came first, before we were even aware of Vedanta, before we even knew much about India and its teachings. So this is more hands-on, it's more to the point, it's more now, more in the now. Find out what this great soul brought us and read his complete works, as I've often told my students, and you'll get a complete mind lift. Forget about your facelift. Forget about your liposuction. You're not the body. Get a mind lift, a mind transformation from reading the complete works of Vivekananda. I challenge you, I dare you. It's like the person who came to Holy Mother, Hindu man. Oh, you gave me the mantra a few days ago and initiated me. It's not working. Like Curly with the cell phone. Hey, iPhone, it's not working. And so Holy Mother said, well, how long have you been practicing it? Oh, just an hour a day for a few days. She laughed. I said, oh, no, son, you have to practice this for months and years to have its effect. If you just go and practice it more intensely for a while and come back to me later, and if then it's not working, then I'll do something. But you have to put some effort into it yourself. See? You have to try this out. Forthcoming, strong. You have to develop character and assurance. You have to have the courage of your convictions. You came to me because somebody told you I was the Divine Mother. You came to me because your friend had a mantra and you didn't, and he said you should get one. You came to me for all these reasons. Then you get what you want and you walk away and don't practice or expect immediate fruits. It's not the way spiritual life works, sorry. And you know, that's really the main reason here in America is why we're not making any spiritual progress. So few of us are making any progress at all. even when we're going to marathon-minded meditation retreats, meditating 8 hours a day with an impure mind. Get rid of your ignorance with knowledge first, then go to a marathon-minded meditation retreat and see what happens to you. It's all backwards. You don't have the right perspective. God will come to you if you purify your mind. God will remain far away no matter how much you meditate, how much you work, how much you study and read scriptures, if your mind has still got these imperfections in it. Karmas, samskaras, wrong orientation. Be a jeweler and then get the diamond. So it's very, very telling in that way. Well, this is Shintoism, I think. And I had to look, again, a long time to find it. Of old, heaven and earth were one, like an egg containing seeds. The pure part was drawn out to form heaven. The gross part became earth. Heaven formed first, earth thereafter. Divine beings were produced between them. It's cosmological. It's qualified non-dualism. I couldn't find anything in Shintoism that really spoke to the non-dual level. Of course, it's hard to find that in many religions, unless you dig. But this was a good quote from the Shinto scripture. And about heaven and earth, you could say about higher existence and lower existence, and the subtle and the gross. You can apply teachings to it that will fill it out. And of course, very nice divine beings came out from that combination of heaven and earth. That's also a good teaching on the luminaries. And finally, up here at the top, that looks like Zoroastrianism. The two primal spirits who reveal themselves in vision as twins are the better and the bad, in thought, word, and action. Between these two, the wise ones choose aright, the foolish not so. So in Zoroastrianism, you find this idea about this duality of good and evil. Vivekananda used to put that in terms of good, best, and better. We turn it into three. So there's evil, yes, but what you really want is good, and you want to go behind good to better, and from better to best. So I think Triputis are a more valuable teaching to us than dualities. In fact, I've always described the third part of a Triputi as a back door out of a duality. If you know there's good and better, then you're looking for best. You see, you don't get stuck there in right and wrong, because that's what Christianity has done in its fundamentalist expression, getting caught in right and wrong. And earth and heaven too, they're caught. Heaven to Vedantists is not desirable. Transcendental reality, where Almighty Father is, that's desirable. That's the highest. And so many of these religions profess that. All right, so I think that is all for that chart. Oh, let's not forget, and there's just a few minutes, that beautiful black pearl in the middle, which is our Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He says, I have fashioned a garland of the different religious traditions of the world, and have offered them all at the sacred feet of the Mother of the Universe. This is why we feel so deeply about Sri Ramakrishna and for Sri Ramakrishna, but at the same time we also think that he's extremely important for this day and age. He's here for a purpose, as an expression of Divine Mother. You haven't seen that before, for one thing. He brought forth the motherhood of God to us, and many of us are responding to that, and even in the West. And he brought forward this idea of universality of all religions. It had been spoken of, mostly through lip service, through a few special souls had touted it, but nobody came and practiced them all, and then listed the results, like he's doing here. So those are just two of the main, real powerful reasons. The eternal Dharma, the motherhood of God, and we can go on about that maybe next week, but we've taken some very beautiful charts, all similar to one another, Mahavakyas, 7 great ideals and the wisdom facets of the garland of universality, to explain this second and third level of great companion, eternal companion, called religion and avatar, or Ishvara, and throw an avatar in there for good measure. So we've covered then really 3 of the 4, and we only have 1 more class. We'll take that up with Brahman and meditation, which I think goes together. Meditation should become a fast companion of yours. If the Dharma's been planted, meditation is, sadhana and meditation are next. So that'll be sort of the focus of next week's final class of this 3-part series. Then we will move on to a retreat in Seattle, and several weeks of teachings in San Francisco and Portland. So you'll see your live streamings next time you tune in. You'll see us in those locations. And then retreat here in Hawaii, rescheduled for April, called The Precipitous Ascent, or its full title is
Precipitous Ascent into Higher Awareness.
Thank you. The Precipitous Ascent into a Higher Awareness is rescheduled for April, toward the end of April. So we hope all of you can come. You're all invited. Your friends are welcome. Let's end with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya Abira Bira Mayeti Rudrayate Dakshinamukam Tenamam Pahinicham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light, from lower truth to higher truth, from the unreal to the real, and from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.